And tell me what time
2 minutes, 20 seconds. So it's a patient who comes for surveillance and who is known to have diverticulus. So very early in the colonoscopy, I already had a difficulty here because there is a very sharp angulation up. And I had the feeling that my tip was already completely up. And then, yeah, sometimes you feel that you can push a bit and it will be fine. But yeah.
Something that people very often say, my tip is fully up, what can I do? And the clues are all here. Why is this difficult for you?
Well, yeah, I was immediately doubting to change the scope to a PCF scope here.
Oh, why are you doubting?
Because they're diverticulous and it really felt like a fixed sigmoid here.
So, okay, you've already made the diagnosis, so you've already identified the problem. And what did you do? Because it doesn't look like you changed the scope in the end.
No, I didn't because I always try to continue. Finally, it worked, but here also was a very difficult part. So here I'm behind the sharp angulation up, but here also was very difficult to really go to where I should go.
And was the patient under anesthetic?
Yeah.
Not good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the patient's deeply sedated. Okay.
Yeah. So then finally here I could progress, but with very, very small movements, having a lot of patients here and here also using my small wheel in the end, which I in the beginning did not do because I always naturally try to do it with torque. But then here with advancing and then small movements with the wheel, I finally got there, but it was really difficult.
So some tips that you can use in the future. I mean, is the prep any good or the prep was all right?
Yeah.
So water immersion. So water immersion for this situation works really well. And something else that you could, do you think you would have got around this if the patient was awake in the way that you did?
Then I think it would have been very hard.
Why would it have been hard?
I think it's painful for the patients.
So John and Rona looking at this, I'm sure, and patients that we do, as you know, with sedation, you're not getting around a sigmoid like this just by pushing around, even if you are. You've got some comments, John and Rona? Sorry, the scope guide appears to not be very good here. That's not necessary, is it, probably?
Right. So I think it's a shame scope guide isn't there because there's a particular configuration in these fixed sigmoids which makes my heart sink. And that is if you have an angulation at the tip, but you have a buckling below that, so you get like a buckle, and it tells me that there's a lot of resistance at the point of angulation. So recently, I've been approaching these segments differently with having talked to John about them, and so as soon as I run into a segment like this, whether I've got the PCF or the CF, I will take the scope out, and if it's the PCF, I'll put the cap on, and if it's the CF, I'll change to the PCF. And I'll do it entirely underwater, and I will use almost exclusively tip movements and not really attempt any torque steering. The torquing generally doesn't work because the sigmoid is fixed. And just occasionally I'll put the patient prone. Now, John will have to explain why he recommends doing that, because I'm not sure what the deconstruction of that would be, but certainly it helps. Recently, we've had in the department a narrow diameter and ultra thin P190 scope. So it's much slimmer than the PCF. And I've been stuck in a couple of sigmoids and got through very quickly with the ultrasim scope. And I think any department should have an ultrasim scope. We have used the enteroscope and the endoscope, upper GI endoscope in the past, but they're far too floppy. And there's a 260 or 160 ultra slim colonoscope, and as I said, a 190 ultra slim. And they don't have scope guide, but they do have some sort of self-stiffening device in them. Once you get round the sigmoid, it's not too difficult to get to the proximal colon. So the other thing just to be aware of, and it came up in one of the objectives that you sent us, David, and that is being careful about inguinal and other hernias. Now, in the recent 6 months, we've had 2 patients where the colonoscope has got stuck in a hernia, one for me, and John came in and helped me, or he actually removed it. And another one, they were using the ultra thin slim scope in our neighboring hospital, and basically they couldn't get the scope out. So the patient had to go to theatre later that evening to have an anaesthetic so the scope could be pulled out. So my surgical colleagues have told me that because of COVID, all routine surgery is virtually stopped in this country, and nobody has had an inguinal hernia repaired for a couple of years. So we've got a lot of people walking around the country with inguinal hernias, and I would suspect it's probably similar in Belgium, although I wouldn't know. And so we're on the alert for hernias, because if the scope does get stuck, it's extremely it's dangerous, and it has terrible consequences. So sometimes, I thought I was in a very tight sigmoid when I was in the inguinal hernia, and then I'd had this experience once before, and I drew back the covers, and there was this huge marrow-shaped hernia with a light in it, and then I knew what the problem was. So just to be careful of that would be my final comment.
Okay, have you got another example in this case? One more, Sarah, of something that was interesting?
So at minute 7:46, there I was in the descending colon, and I felt I was not really progressing optimally. So then I asked the nurse to give some pressure, and I put my stiffener on, and then it went better.
You said you were where?
Where did you think you were?
I thought I was in the descending colon. Probably was further.
Looking at the scope guide here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let one of John or Roland address that.
So where do you think you are looking at the scope guide?
In the transverse.
You're in the transverse. You're in the proximal transverse, aren't you? So were you using the scope guide at this moment, or are you referring to earlier in the procedure where there was a problem?
No, it's here. It's here.
But sorry, I think the confusion is you said just now that you thought you were in the descending.
Yeah, but it's just I'm reading it here. But
you're wrong with the time. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And any other examples on that?
So can I just say that it'd be nice to see the next 2 or 3 seconds on that video, because you were doing a very nice reduction of a big transverse loop there, and I just wondered whether you were successful or not. I just wanted to compliment you on that if you were. I mean, it looks like you are going to be successful. So you're effectively reducing that big transverse in one go. So hats off to you. That was amazing. That was really good.